Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to my Monday Night Raw review. And tonight's Raw was from the Sprint Center in Kansas City, Missouri. And this was the go-home show for Survivor Series, which is this Sunday. And before I start the Raw review, very sad news that came out today in the the comic world, in the Marvel world. Stan Lee ended up passing away today. He was 95, and he was an inspiration to a lot of people. From writing the comics, creating these Marvel characters, these great Marvel characters that we all know and love. From the Hulk to Iron Man to Thor, Captain America, Spider-Man. Fantastic Four, you name it. And it's a shame, that he's passed away. I'm gonna miss his his little cameo appearances, in future Marvel films. Last film that he cameoed in was of course the Venom film, and I know possibly there's gonna be a tribute to him when Avengers 4 ends up coming out, where part 2 of Avengers comes out next year. Avengers Infinity War part 2. I know that they're possibly going to make a tribute for Stan Lee because you have to. So, but my condolences and prayers go out to his family. Such a shame that he passed away. It was shocking news. Like this news came out of nowhere. So, but rest in peace, Stan Lee. We're gonna miss you. So, yeah. So, anyways, on to the Raw review. I gotta say, tonight's Raw was pretty meh show, in my opinion. I mean, there was some good that I liked about it, some that were shit. Wasn't a terrible show. I have to say it was much better. It was much better than last week's Raw, which last week's Raw was one of the most boring Raws, that I've seen. And that was pretty boring, last week's Raw. So let's get on with the review. So the show opened up with Veterans Day, video, like a tribute, which was pretty nice. Even though Veterans Day was yesterday, but it was still cool that that they showed that video, tribute, for Veterans Day. And then we opened up with it was a Raw Tag Team Battle Royal. Whoever won this will get to be the team captain for the Tag Team Survivor Series match, with Team SmackDown for the Tag Team Survivor Series match. So it was, the Revival was in there, the B Team. You had the Lucha House Party, and then from out of nowhere, Braun Strowman ends up coming out. His music hits. He ends up taking down all the tag teams that were in that Battle Royal, and he brings, he gets a chair, he brings it into the ring, he gets on the mic, and he says, tonight's Raw is brought to you by the Monster Among Men. And he's just sitting there in the ring. Strowman says he's done chasing after Corbin, and he's not leaving. Sorry about that, but I was saying, Strowman was saying, he's done chasing after Corbin, and he's not leaving the ring until Corbin gets these hands. And so out comes Stephanie McMahon, and she ends up saying to Strowman that she understands that Strowman is upset with Baron Corbin, and that and that he cannot hold Raw hostage. And Stephanie ends up appreciating the aggression and rage that Strowman has, but she says she needs Strowman to channel it for for what it's really worth, and what's really important, and that is Survivor Series. And she ends up telling him that her brother Shane insulted the entire Raw locker room when he stole the WWE World Cup at Crown Jewel. And she was like to Strowman, is Strowman going to let Shane disrespect Raw? And Strowman then interrupts her and says he doesn't give a damn about Shane or representing Raw at Survivor Series. I mean, why would Strowman care? Why would Strowman care about Shane? And so Stephanie gets in Strowman's face and says he and everybody on the roster better give a damn. And so Strowman says, he knows all the corporate types who look at him, but he knows, when he's being manipulated. And, he ends up saying to Stephanie to bring Corbin out to take care of it. And Stephanie then offers Strowman a business proposal where both her and Strowman could get, what they want. And so Stephanie says, Strowman Strowman will lead Team Raw to victory on Sunday night, and he could have whatever he wants. And so Strowman says to Stephanie, he wants another Universal Championship match against Brock Lesnar. And so Stephanie agrees to that. And he also says he also wants Corbin. And he wants to pick the stipulations of both matches, for Brock Lesnar, for his match with Brock Lesnar, and for his match with Baron Corbin. And Stephanie, agreed to both. Strowman ends up saying to Stephanie that, he wants one more request. And that is, he wants a waiver, so he's not responsible for what he might do to Corbin. And Stephanie ends up telling him that might take time, as long as Strowman keeps his hands off Corbin until after Survivor Series. And so Strowman says, he better get, what he wants, or he is going to go to the WWE headquarters and destroy the whole building. And he ends up saying that to Stephanie. And Stephanie says, she's trying to be transparent and encourage everyone to fight for Raw, whether it's men or women. And then she ends up getting interrupted by Ronda Rousey. Ronda says, she's been waiting for a challenge like Becky Lynch since she came here to the WWE. And Ronda ends up saying she can't wait to show the man how it's really done. And so Corbin ends up coming out and says he's with Stephanie, saying they need to focus on SmackDown, that Raw needs to focus on SmackDown at Survivor Series. And he says, like Stephanie, he's here to motivate Raw talent, and that they can't afford to be embarrassed again. And Corbin puts his hand, we see Corbin put his hand on Ronda's shoulder. And Ronda ends up judo flipping Corbin. And so Ronda leaves, and Corbin was yelling at her for judo flipping him. And he ends up getting up. Strowman ends up squaring up against Corbin, and Stephanie was trying to get in between the both of them, so neither one of them, could throw a punch. And she ends up yelling at Corbin, telling him to get out of the ring and not provoke, Braun Strowman. And so Strowman says to Corbin to enjoy his time as Stephanie's lapdog. And he ends up saying to Corbin that when after Survivor Series, he is going to neuter Corbin. And so that's how the segment ended. But it was pretty meh segment, in my opinion. Then we had the first match of tonight. It was Tamina versus Ember Moon. This was a squash match. Ember Moon deserves a whole lot better. Deserves a whole lot better than what WWE is giving her. I mean, this is how you do Ember. You bring her up from NXT, and what has she done since coming up to the main roster? Pretty much nothing. But Nia was out there. She came down with Tamina. Tamina ended up getting the win. She ended up jumping from the top, ended up splashing Ember Moon. So it was a squash match, in my opinion. Sorry about that, but after the match we saw Nia Jax comes into the ring, and she ended up delivering a leg drop to Ember. So that was pretty much what happened after the match. But all in all, Tamina versus Ember Moon, it was a squash match. And then we had Corey Graves introducing Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins ends up coming out. Corey Graves talks to him about Survivor Series, saying he's representing Raw, taking on Shinsuke Nakamura, on Sunday at Survivor Series. Seth says this Sunday, Survivor Series, it's him versus Nakamura, and it's going to be a hell of a fight. And he says he doesn't give a damn about Nakamura. And Corey says, if Seth's head is not in the game, Nakamura is going to take, his head off. And Seth says tonight he wants answers as to why Ambrose did it to him and, did it to Roman. So Seth, is still looking for answers as to why Ambrose attacked him. And we had Seth say, Dean Ambrose knows why, he did what he did. And, he's not a man. He's not man enough to come out and tell him. Dean's not, man enough to come out and tell Seth. And we see Ambrose was on the Titantron saying that he doesn't need to explain, and no one deserves an explanation from him as to why he attacked Seth. Ambrose ends up going on to say that he was too selfish or absorbed to see what was around him. He says maybe he regrets his actions, and one day his brothers could forgive him. Ambrose says the truth is he thought the Shield was strong. But he really ends up saying the truth is the Shield made him look weak, made him weak. And so we had Ambrose. Ambrose was sitting on a car, and he had a trash fire there. And we saw he ended up having his Shield vest with him, and it ends with him throwing the vest into the trash fire, pretty much burning his vest, burning his Shield vest. And so that's how the segment ended, and we had Seth Rollins end up walking to the back. But I liked this segment. It was pretty good with Ambrose. Ambrose saying, we don't need answers as to why he attacked Seth. So, and pretty much saying that the Shield made him weak. So, but it was a good segment in my opinion. It was an enjoyable segment. And then we had Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre coming out. McIntyre goes on to say that when he first showed up on Raw, he was going to take over. And he says first he broke the Shield. And he broke Kurt's ankle, which we saw, last week. He says last week Kurt went into the match, and when he was finished, he was nothing more of an embarrassment. And I kind of agree with that. McIntyre applying ankle lock finisher. Kurt Angle ended up tapping out. That was embarrassing to see, Kurt Angle tap out to his finisher. And sorry about that again. But McIntyre says Kurt gave him everything he had, and says when he looked into his eyes, he saw his will to win. He saw his will to win fading. And McIntyre says he has worked for 18 long years to get to where he is at. And he says Raw is his show now, and that there is no more room for weakness. And it's not going to have no more nostalgia acts. And he then gets interrupted by Finn Balor. Finn Balor ends up coming out and says, listening to McIntyre talk. And he says last week McIntyre crossed the line, and he didn't need to humiliate Kurt. And McIntyre says he could have done so much worse to Kurt, and that the reason Balor is out here is because he ended up beating him down last week. And Balor ends up telling McIntyre to shut up, and he says to him to let's have a match right now. And so McIntyre says he's got a match, but he's not going to be taken on Balor. McIntyre is not going to be taken on Balor. But he announces that Finn will be taken on Dolph Ziggler. And McIntyre says to Balor, if he can beat Dolph, he will consider lowering himself to his level. And so then we see McIntyre end up headbutting Balor, and the show went to commercial. But that was a segment. I mean, it was a decent segment with McIntyre. This proves that McIntyre that should be champion, should hold the title. Hopefully he wins it by the end of the year. If not, WWE is missing the mark on making McIntyre be champion. Because when you look at McIntyre, you see a champion in him. So I hope WWE, makes McIntyre be, a champion by the end of the year. If not, they are going to miss the boat. So then we had Finn Balor versus Dolph Ziggler. This was, decent match, back and forth between Balor and Dolph. Balor pretty entertaining in this match. Balor ended up getting the win with the roll up to Dolph to score the win. So Balor ends up winning the match. It was a decent match, in my opinion. Then we had Stephanie congratulating Finn Balor. Stephanie was there with Baron Corbin. Stephanie congrats Finn on what he believes in, and she ends up telling Balor to be a part of the Raw Men's Survivor Series team on Sunday. And McIntyre comes, and Stephanie says to him that she cannot hurt that he cannot hurt her teammate, and that Balor, Dolph, and McIntyre are on the team. So those three are on the team, which is gonna get really interesting, because who knows if there's gonna be bad blood with them on Sunday. So Stephanie says that the three of them have to respect and work with each other on Sunday. Then after Survivor Series, they can tear each other apart. So that was that. And then we had Charlie Caruso. She was interviewing Ronda Rousey about Becky Lynch, what Becky had to say last week on SmackDown. Ronda says Becky is the man, and that she can dish it out. That Becky can dish it out. And she says Becky can, dish out, being the man, but she can't take it. And she ends up calling Becky a millennial man with a bubble wrap ego. And Nia and Tamina come there. Nia ends up saying, her and Tamina both wish Ronda good luck on Sunday in her match against Becky Lynch. So it was a little interview with Ronda. Then we had the Riot Squad come out. Ruby Riot was on the mic, and she was talking about, she wanted to address her actions from last week when she ended up ripping up Jim the Anvil Neidhart's glasses, so-called glasses. They possibly, they weren't, the real pairs of, the real pair of glasses that Jim the Anvil Neidhart, wore. And Ruby says when she broke Jim the Anvil Neidhart's glasses, she struck a nerve with Natalya and the WWE universe, and she was being so emotional. We all know when these heel when these superstars are heels and they're being this emotional. Where that's going to lead to. It's going to lead to of course tricking the fans. Getting some heat. And sorry about that, but Ruby ends up saying, she understands why she got in the backlash, and she says, Jim was a future WWE Hall of Famer, a badass powerhouse, and she took all those happy memories and turned them into nightmares. And she says she humiliated Natalya in front of a worldwide audience, and she says, and when she was smiling, you saw that Joker, face in her. Ruby Riott, could play, a female Joker. To me, with that smile that she had, it looked like the Joker smile that she had. And she goes, I enjoyed every second of it. And she says to Natalya, she didn't take it far enough, and she wanted Natalya to bawl like a baby. And she ends up saying, Jim wore those glasses because he was ashamed to look at her own daughter. And Natalya's music ends up hitting. Natalya comes from behind and takes down Ruby. Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan end up, taking down Natalya. And Ruby then end up hitting the heart attack on Natalya. And that's how the segment ended. So, but it was a very meh segment. I'm like, okay, we didn't need to see Ruby Riott address that, her actions. I mean, this is gonna lead to Ruby versus Natalya. Gonna get a feud. Gonna get a little feud here with them. Then we had they did this again. The Raw Tag Team Battle Royal, which took place, of course, at the beginning of the night, but ended up getting interrupted by Braun Strowman. And we had it again. We had an official winner of the match. The official winners of the match. And the winners of this Raw Tag Team Battle Royal was Bobby Roode and Chad Gable. And so they're going to be, the team captains for the Raw Tag Team Survivor Series match to take on the tag team from SmackDown. So, but it was, didn't care for this this Battle Royal, this Raw Tag Team Battle Royal. It was just a bunch of jobbers in the match. You had the Ascension in there, the B Team, the Revival. Sadly, the Revival I think should have won this Battle Royal, but they had to give it to Bobby Roode and Chad Gable. And this is pretty much setting up Bobby Roode possibly turning heel on Chad Gable. So that might end up that might end up possibly happening. Can't even speak tonight. But yeah, that's possibly going to be happening. But we want to see Bobby Roode go back to being a heel, because he was a good heel when he was down in NXT. So I want to see that NXT Bobby Roode again, that heel Bobby Roode that we saw in NXT. Then we had Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman coming out. Heyman says no one deserves congrats than Brock Lesnar. And so he ends up congratulating Strowman, who he says proves that he is a almost unbeatable monster when he got hit with 5 F5s from Lesnar, which we saw at Crown Jewel. And from what I heard, the reason why Strowman didn't win the Universal Championship at Crown Jewel is because Strowman's been getting heat backstage, where he's showing up late and leaving early, and the WWE officials are not happy with that. And of course, heard Braun Strowman's working with injury. I heard his legs are shot. And that's why he's running. He was running slow, like when he was running last week and tonight. He was running a little bit slow. And so you could basically tell that his knees are injured. He's working around this injury. And Heyman says he congrats Strowman that showed that he can work his way into the title picture, and he congrats the SmackDown roster for avoiding the beating to the champion this Sunday at Survivor Series. And then Heyman ended up congratulating Styles, and he says Heyman says the crowd chants Styles because Styles has a chance on beating Lesnar. And he pretty much almost beat Lesnar last year at Survivor Series. And Heyman says Sunday Styles is going to fly into LA and he will take the beating that is coming his way. And Heyman says there is no one in WWE on Raw, SmackDown, NXT, or even in the UFC that Lesnar wants more than AJ Styles. And he wants to beat everyone more than AJ Styles. And so Heyman says Sunday it will be suplex, F5, 1, 2, 3. And the winner, Lesnar. And he ends up saying that it's not a prediction. And he then gets interrupted by Jinder Mahal. Jinder Mahal ends up coming out with both of the Singh brothers. And Jinder says to Heyman that he respects his goal on making his client a 2-time champion. And he ends up, talking about, when Styles ended up beating him for the WWE Championship. And he says, he ends up telling him, don't underestimate Styles. And he says he is here as Heyman's friend, and for Lesnar to focus on Styles. And he wants Lesnar to listen to Jinder's mantra. Which is the whole Shanti thing, or shitty, as what JD from New York 206 says. But Lesnar then tells Jinder to come into the ring. Jinder ends up telling Lesnar to breathe in and say Shanti. And then we see Lesnar then clotheslines Jinder. He then ends up suplexing the Singh brothers. One of the Singh brothers, I think it was Samir Sin. He ended up getting suplexed on his head, which looked pretty bad because his head really went into the canvas, which looked brutal. Then he took one of the Singh brothers and threw him out of the ring, then on to Jinder. And then we saw Lesnar end up then F5-ing Jinder outside. And when Brock Lesnar ended up beating down on Jinder and the Singh brothers, it was funny. It was hilarious seeing that. I was laughing. So that was the segment. Then we had Lio Rush out there, and with Bobby Lashley, and he's like, "Oh, here's the most magnificent body in the world." So he's praising Bobby Lashley. He ends up calling Bobby Lashley art, and Lashley starts doing chest poses, just posing for himself. Elias is out talking on the phone, saying, "Oh, is this Child Protective Services?" Because he thinks Lashley kidnapped, the child, which Elias is referring to Lio Rush, which that I gotta admit, I actually laughed at that. I thought it was funny. And so Lashley ends up calling Elias a clown, and that he's always up there trying to be funny. And he tells Elias to walk down to say any of his funny stuff in his face. And Elias says, "Oh, we all know Bobby Lashley sucks," and he's going to shut that Tyler's mouth up. And so Raw went to a commercial. Then when we came back, it was Bobby Lashley versus Elias. This match, it was meh. Wasn't that good of a match. Bobby Lashley ended up winning the match by countout because we saw Lio Rush. He was under the ring. He was holding on to Elias so Elias wouldn't get back into the ring. And after the match, Elias ended up getting Lio Rush, throws him, tosses him back into the ring, and he ended up throwing Lio Rush fast outside through the rope onto Bobby Lashley. And just from this match, Bobby Lashley is the last member to be on the Raw Survivor Series team. So he's the last member. So, but all in all, it wasn't that good of a match, in my opinion. Then we had Alexa Bliss come out to name her woman who will represent the Women's Survivor Series, the Raw Women's Survivor Series team. and she came out with Mickie James, Nia Jax, and Tamina. Alexa ended up saying that this Sunday is personal. And it's going to be proven. It's proven that Raw is the A show, and SmackDown will be the second best. She goes on to say that she demands victory, and she says she sent Natalya home to tarnish the rage against SmackDown on Sunday, and find out that Mickie, Nia, and Tamina are in there. And Alexa says the winner of this match will be the last team member of the Women's Survivor Series team. And so Sasha Banks ended up coming out, and Bayley. And so, they were going, they were having a match against each other, which the match was kind of pointless, because the match ended in a no contest because Nia and Tamina end up beating down on Bayley and Sasha, and also Mickie. Nia, Tamina, and Mickie were beating the hell out of Bayley and Sasha. And Alexa then announces the fifth member for the women's team, and is revealed to be Ruby Riott. And so Ruby Riott is the last member for the Raw Women's Survivor Series team. And then we went backstage, and we saw Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch was there with the. She ended up locking in the disarmer to Ronda Rousey, which was kind of predictable. We all knew that that Becky was possibly going to show up, tonight. Possibly going to take down Ronda, put her in the disarmer, because called it. I knew it was going to happen. And so then we had Becky end up coming out, and we get the SmackDown Women's Division, the SmackDown Survivor Series team come out, and they were just beating down on the Raw Survivor Series team, and we had Alexa Bliss get out of there. So it was just Nia, Tamina, and Mickie in there, and all the SmackDown Survivor Series women's team, where we had Carmella, Naomi, Sonya Deville, Asuka, and Charlotte was there also, which they said that Charlotte wasn't going to be in. We didn't know that if Charlotte was going to answer to be on the women's team as the team captain. So she was there for some reason, and we saw Ronda comes down, gets hit with a chair from Becky, and Becky, she ended up having, she was busted open. I guess she had a broken nose. She broke her nose during this brawl, but because she was all bloodied up. So that was pretty much what happened. But that was a good way to end Raw. It was cool, seeing Becky come and the whole SmackDown Survivor Series team come for the women's. And then we saw Stephanie and Corbin backstage, which they weren't pleased that SmackDown, the SmackDown Women's Survivor Series team invaded. Yeah, sorry about that. I had to let my cat out. But yeah, so Stephanie and Corbin weren't pleased that the SmackDown Survivor Series Women's team came, invaded to Raw. And Stephanie says to Corbin that all the SmackDown women beat down on the Raw Survivor Series women's team. And she ends up saying to Corbin to fix this problem, and that they will win Sunday. And that's how Raw ended tonight, which Raw USA is not doing is not making Raw do overruns, because you remember Raw used to overrun, used to end at 11:05, and so now they're not doing that no more, which is pretty good. And so now it's going to be from 8 to 11 every single week. It started tonight, and it's going to be like that every single week. Raw is going to be from 8 to 11, not 11:05, not 11:15, 11 o'clock, which is good. Now, hopefully this gets. I know that they probably won't do it. Hopefully with this, it leads to Raw going back to 2 hours, which I hope it does, because 3 hours. We're all sick of Raw being 3 hours. So, yes, anyways, that's it for my review of tonight's Monday Night Raw. Thank you all for watching. Wasn't that great of a go-home show, in my opinion, though. But, anyways, thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give this video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all back here tomorrow night for my SmackDown review, and also my review of the mixed match challenge, which is going to be in the same video. So, see you all tomorrow night with the review.